Voices amongst the static. A glitch in the simulation. A broadcast with no origin. You have found the Phenomenauts podcast.
Hello, you swarm of ever-consuming and expiring biomass. You've tuned into the Phenomenauts, a bi-monthly podcast where we look at the weird, wonderful and mysterious happenstances of this, and occasionally other universes. Your hosts on this wild ride are myself, Dee, the awesome Amber,
Bon howdy,
and the illustrious Oscar.
Hoi hoi hoi.
Don't forget, we are on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and Transistor, so please give us a like, follow, share, comment, download, whatever is easiest. We just love hearing from and interacting with you fine folks in the audience. Alrighty, admin out of the way, how is everybody doing this fine winter evening?
I'm good.
I'm wearing a nice jumper.
Ooh.
I do like that jumper.
I think following on from the last episode of Trilog, I'm wearing my dressing gown.
I stand.
Nice.
I stand completely.
What about you, Dee?
I am alive, and that will do. So, this week, we're doing something a little bit different. Remember episode 46? Maybe, maybe not. It was called Enigmatic. It had pretty rough audio due to some technical difficulties, and it just so happened that we had 3 topics in that. And now we have 3 hosts. So we figured let's have a cheeky little do-over, maybe a little update if we've had any more news, or if we've just generally wrapped our head around the concepts a little better. And yeah, that was the other thing. This week, we're not going to be spinning the wheel, because, to be honest, it's going to flow a little bit nicer if we don't. So, if you don't mind starting us, Amber, if you're comfortable with that.
Yes.
Probably, apologies, by the way, I meant to brief you on this before we started, but because it's like a paragraph or 2 into the script, I completely forgot.
We'll do it live.
Woo!
I feel so lost without the wheel of speech.
I know. Where's the build? Where's the tension?
I know, but I'm sure we'll manage.
I'm sure we will.
Okay, so, basically for anyone who listened to the original recording of the episode, firstly, I'm really sorry. Are you okay? I know it was rough. Probably really hurt your ears. Secondly, I'm literally going off the same script this time around as well, so some jokes might be rehashed because they might just be baked into my script. Luckily for me, I have a terrible memory, so they're all fresh to me. So let's get into it. So this is a topic that I've been looking into for a while, but to be honest, I didn't understand it, and you know what? I still don't. But I'm going to give it a good old college try. The brain operates in 11 dimensions. So, what do I mean by that? No, really, what do I mean by that? I hope you guys knew. Okay, let's make a distinction here. So, between physical dimensions and geometric dimensions. So, what I'm not saying is that there's a black hole inside your skull due to the information threshold of space being exceeded on account of there being more brain cells and more brain than is possible in 3 dimensions. What I am, or rather what Ryman et al. 2017 am saying, is that the functional connections between groups of neurons can be described as 11-dimensional when described by algebraic topology. So that sounds complicated. First off, don't worry, because I think that's complicated too. So I'll try and simplify. So, first off, physical dimensions. So that's like X, Y, Z. So, width, height, depth. It's just, the 3 dimensions that we live in. And then algebraic topology is... So it uses abstract algebra to study topological spaces, which are kind of like theoretical spaces. Like they don't necessarily exist. You can use topology to describe a donut or a ball or, a cylinder or something like that, but you can get topological things that are impossible, so they can't be real in real life and stuff. It's a bit mathsy, but don't worry about it. I'm sure it will become clear. So the brain has been studied in the past, sure, but unfortunately it's hard to apply traditional mathematics to the brain. So we kind of just stopped doing it to an extent. But then these fine folks tried a type of maths used to describe geometric shapes, and then they applied it to the sort of cliques of neurons. So basically they looked at the pattern of brain activity as if they were objects, and those objects are higher dimensional. As in, the algebra can describe the interconnectedness of neurons in the sort of algebra workspace. It's 11-dimensional. So it's kind of like... I know some of our friends studied mathematics, and they had done higher dimensional things. So it's basically, I'm using algebra, and if I do algebra in 3 dimensions, you get certain results. And sometimes in order to describe something with algebra, you have to add more dimensions. Now that might just seem like, well, why are you adding more dimensions? But it just means that the algebra works in a higher dimensional way. So like instead of having a donut, you could have like a hyper donut that's like a 4-dimensional donut that it's like a hoop. It's like a circle, but it's in more dimensions than 3. And honestly, it'll fail me to try and describe it to you because, this stuff is impossible. But, if you want to describe the topology of a hypercube, a 4-dimensional cube, you would have to add another dimension in your calculations. Otherwise, you won't be able to describe it. We're trying to talk about a 4-dimensional cube here. So the way that the brain's neurons interconnect is 11-dimensional. Hopefully, you're kind of following what I'm trying to get at here. So let me quote them, so you can be like, oh, that sounds really cool, wow. So here's just a couple of excerpts from the paper. The mathematics usually applied to study networks cannot detect the higher dimensional structures and spaces that we now see clearly. There are tens of millions of these objects, even in a small speck of the brain, up through 7 dimensions. In some networks, we even found structures with up to 11 dimensions. It's as if the brain reacts to stimulus by building and then raising a tower of multi-dimensional blocks, starting with rods, which are 1D, then planks, 2D, then cubes, 3D, then more complex geometries with 4D, 5D, etc. The progression of activity through the brain resembles a multi-dimensional sandcastle that materializes out of the sand and then disintegrates. So that it just sounds like super space age. So yeah, like 1D, it'll be like this neuron talks to that neuron. And then 2D is this neuron talks to that one, and that one talks to another one. And then you can create these kind of like higher dimensional structures. So basically, by adding stimuli to the virtual brain, the researchers found that cliques of progressively higher dimensions assembled. So that's what they mean by multi-dimensional sandcastle. Furthermore, in between the cliques, scientists discovered high-dimensional cavities. Ooh. So it's the combination of increasingly high-dimensional blocks of neuron activity and the high-dimensional cavities between those neuron interactions that create these 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-dimensional architecture of the brain. When I was looking through my notes, I was like, oh no, I've got a picture here and I can't show you, but I realised that I am still able to include pictures because we're still on YouTube. We haven't done since we started doing remote recordings. But you know what, I'm going to throw it up now anyway, because I'm the one who does the editing. So, ha ha ha. For everyone that's listening, this image is going to be available in the Curiosmos article that's going to be in the sources. So in this image, you can see shapes of different sizes and geometries. This is an attempt to represent structures ranging from 1 dimension to 7 dimensions and beyond. The black hole in the middle is used to symbolize a complex of multidimensional spaces or cavities. Researchers at Blue Brain Project report groups of neurons bound into such cavities provide the missing link between neural structure and function. So this is kind of like we're finally putting two and two together here. We're able to look at the neuronal structure and be able to relate it to the function, which we haven't been able to do before. So this is an amazing image as well. I love it. So these researchers are part of the Blue Brain Project, a project aiming to build a supercomputer based on the design of the brain, which I have bookmarked for a possible future episode because that sounds really cool.
It does sound very cool.
Yeah, a supercomputer based on a human brain. Like, do you want Skynet? This is how you get Skynet. So the new study may eventually help scientists uncover one of the greatest mysteries of neuroscience. Where does the brain store its memories? And here's a quote. They may be hiding in high-dimensional cavities, end quote. Researcher Henry Markram concluded. So this is what inspired a certain kind of magic in my mind, and just for me, like, where are your memories? Could they be in a higher dimension, and they're only called into existence when provoked? Like, maybe that's where consciousness is born, in the 11th dimension. Oh, it just seemed like this is like breaking new ground. It's we're finally being able to put the way that the brain is structured and the way that it functions together in a way that we've not been able to do before, simply by applying a different kind of mathematics to it that we wouldn't normally do. And it's certainly exciting that the people who've discovered this are the guys working on the supercomputer brain. So it's, and I love these kind of metaphysical ideas of, I need to remember something, and then your brain fires up, creating higher dimensional structure, which invokes this like reliving of an experience that you've had. So like, we can't pinpoint anywhere in the brain where the memories are held because they're not in this three-dimensional structure. They're in a high-dimensional structure that's caused by the interconnectedness, the way that the neurons fire and speak with each other. And that's perhaps where memories are stored. And I just thought that was quite mind-blowing.
I thought that was really interesting.
I certainly found it interesting. And you know what? This was one of the main reasons I wanted to go back and re-record the episode, because I loved this topic, and I also love the other topics that we've got for you today. So I wanted it to be as crisp and as clean and as perfect as possible. So I'll give way now.
I definitely understood it a little bit more the second time around too. I'm just more awake this time, I think.
But yeah, that was all I had. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
You say all you had. That was pretty mind-blowing. Nicely done, Fumbles.
Yeah. Every time I learn about the brain or hear somebody explaining more about the brain, I try and wrestle with the mental challenge of, can a brain fully understand how the brain works?
Yeah.
Because maybe it's just not built to be able to comprehend fully how it works.
Yeah.
Isn't it something you said, Amber, the like perils of the mind thinking about itself or something like that?
Yeah, like how could... I mean, not only like how could you really deduce your own existence and like of like consciousness and stuff, but also how is it that the brain operates in 11 dimensions, but you can't perceive more than 3? It's just so bizarre. The brain, this endless mystery, an enigma wrapped in a skull.
I don't know why. I was for some reason expecting more layers there, but I don't know why. All right, so that does mean it's me now. So I've a relatively short one this week, which is nice for sort of breaking me back into talking about science and stuff. Given that I've been on the wonder hunt the last few weeks and just absorbing a hideously large amount of information in one go. So this is
You are going to be fantastic at pub quizzes.
Oh God, don't even. I could be the pub quiz monarch.
That's it.
So, big science, the Heliopause. What's the Heliopause? Well, it's the it's a bit like a big old space barrier or boundary, which is kind of exactly how I mentioned it last time. But in reality, it's a bit more like a porous membrane. So like a giant invisible space sponge. That's probably more apt.
Yeah.
I think that works. I'll take it.
Yep.
And, as always, bear with me. I haven't talked about science in a while. So I'm a bit nervous, but I'm sure I'll manage. Let me start by saying, we lie in the heliosphere. What's the heliosphere? I'm just saying helio and adding words to the end of it. Well, the heliosphere it's a big bubble of space. It's the sun's influence. If I'm being very sciencey-wiency and quoting from one of my sources, it is the cavity formed by the sun in the surrounding interstellar medium. The bubble of the heliosphere is continuously inflated by plasma originating from the sun, known as the solar wind. So, think of it like our star system's safety bubble. It's not really safe or a bubble, but it kind of fits.
I really love that impression. That was great. Ew, yes. I just imagine you pushing your glasses up on your nose.
That was what I was going for. Thank you. So the heliosphere is made up of various different, stellar facets, and I felt very fancy writing the words stellar and facets next to each other. But the part I'm going to bang on about the most today is just the heliopause, which is just one angle, but it's what I talked about last time, and I'm not going to go into too much depth because you know what I'm like. I'll just talk for eons.
Sorry, do you mind if I just give you one sort of what's the word, analogy
Sure.
for it? It's almost like you're in a cold, room, and then you light a fire. It's kind of like the warmth.
Yes.
There's a point where you stop feeling the warmth from the fire, and you're now in the cold. But the closer you get, the more you kind of have this heat coming off. So it's kind of like the sun is a big fireball. So it's kind of blasting out this heat and energy, and the heliopause is kind of where that sort of peters off, and you're just in the cold now. It's
like a stellar drop-off.
Yeah.
Like, it just, eventually, there is a distance at which it is no longer effective.
Yeah. At the point where the sun is just another star.
Yeah. So it's roughly 11 billion miles from the sun, which, pretty big. And it changes shape because solar winds and interstellar gas... that they fluctuate and change, and that kind of alters the shape of the heliopause a little bit. In fact, all major planets' orbits, including Earth, actually lie within the heliopause. The only spacecraft to ever pass through it are the Voyager crafts, but Oscar will tell you more about that later.
Ooh.
Sources define the heliopause as the boundary between local and interstellar space. It's the easiest way I think I could boil it down. Is like, this is just kind of like the roadblock for where we, if we were driving from one country to the next, this is the checkpoint, where you got to get your passport out and be like, it's me, I've got all the things I need, let me through.
Excuse me, I'm trying to go interstellar.
Yeah, pretty much, that's kind of bang on. And on November 5th, 2018, Voyager 2 passed through this stellar medium. And I'm just going to directly quote from Dr. Jeffrey Hayes, an astrophysicist at NASA, because, of course, he's way more qualified than me, so why would I try and boil this down? Inside is the space we live in, which is the very extended influence of the sun and the solar wind that it generates, and outside is a region that is not under that same influence. Both Voyagers found this to be the case. The original model was that the solar wind would just gradually fade away until one was in the interstellar medium. Clearly, that is not the case. The heliopause acts as a somewhat porous boundary that only allows some particles to traverse it. Because we only have very recently passed through it in 2012 with Voyager 1 and now with Voyager 2, obviously this is a slightly old article, there are still a lot of aspects that we don't understand. What we know from Voyager 2 is that the magnetic field surrounding the heliopause is actually stronger than we first anticipated, and it seems that the field changes over small distances and charged particles carried by solar wind that, and I quote, leak out into the interstellar void. So it's not necessarily just like a drop-off, there's not a cut-off. There is I don't want to use the word static, but the line's very blurry. It's not our solar system ends, you've hit the heliopause, and the minute you pass through it, you're out. It's a big spongy, permeable membrane. Things just can fall out of it. Things can fall into it, I'd imagine.
Because I guess thinking about it, what the sun is putting out is a lot of different kinds of things.
Exactly. And I just thought it was really wild because effectively, it's where the sun's wind drops off, and it made me think about how I'd always thought with space, like say you throw something in space and it's going at a speed, it would just continue to go. And this kind of made me reevaluate that idea in the sense that, yeah, it's not just a case of, oh, well, it would keep going until there's a planet in the way. Solar winds affect kind of, the way things move and gravity. And there's so many factors at play that I'd never really considered about just, I guess, interstellar travel and moving through the void itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just kind of it kind of got me thinking like the void has a mind of its own.
Yeah.
But yeah, and obviously the other thing that got me is where these sort of stellar winds kind of drop off. There's other interstellar phenomenon that are just stronger than our solar winds, and that's why they drop off. Like there's just other emissions that stop like our solar wind continually moving, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's weird to think that there's these constant sort of sources of, I guess, like stars, always putting off these different solar winds and cosmic rays and things, and they all sort of create this blurry line of boundaries between one another.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just pretty wild. I don't know if either of you two have any closing thoughts on the subject.
It's one of these things. It's like a mystery that we haven't realised is a mystery. Like we go, oh, one day we'll be probably going through the stars, and for some reason we always gloss over all the problems that we've not even addressed at the moment, but we know exist. Like we know there's a boundary to our sort of solar system, and we know there's a lot of distance to go, and we're moving, and other objects in space are moving, and it's expanding, and we're just like, no, we'll work it out.
It's that idea of like known unknowns, like oh, we know that there's going to be something, but we don't know what it is, obviously, but we know that we're lacking in information. But then thinking about, if you wanted to consider interstellar travel, the unknown unknowns, the things which you have no concept of, but you don't know the answer to them. So you're going to go out there and you're going to know as much as you can, and you're going to hit barriers that you didn't know existed, and you're going to have to come up with ways of addressing them. But yeah, I mean, we will have learned a lot about the Heliopause just in the last few years, thanks to a probe we sent out in the 70s, the Voyager probes.
I don't remember. We'll have to wait for Oscar's segment.
Like 50-year-old probes have only just managed to hit a thing, and we have learned something about it. It just seems like crazy to think. And it takes that long just to get out of the heliosphere.
Yeah, it's
wow.
It's really, really interesting stuff.
I think it's one of the Voyagers which is the fastest man-made object.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know that.
Because it's absolutely bucking it through space. It is
zooming it through the void.
It's got the zoomies.
Yeah. It is. It's doing a big zoom. It must be 3 a.m. out in space at all times. One last thing as well. When you were describing it like this spongy membrane, all I could see the sun and the solar system and the heliosphere and heliopause. I can only imagine it in my head like a cell, and the sun is the nucleus.
Well, that's kind of the mental picture I was getting, though.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like it said, some stuff can just slip out of it and slip into it, but it's creating this sort of semi-permeable or permeable is probably a better word to use, isn't it? A permeable barrier around an area of space, and yeah, it does make me think like a cell. But in the same way, I suppose you could think of any sort of, I don't know if star system's the correct term.
Yeah,
but yeah, you could think of any star system like a cell.
Yeah, I mean, it's spherical like most cells. I always thought of, when you see like an atom. Or depictions of an atom, an electron orbiting an atom, I always thought, whoa, isn't it weird that the planets orbit the sun and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I think it's just, that there just are ways that things operate in 3D space. If you can be anywhere around something in 3D space, it's going to look like a shell around it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's not strange to think that is the way that, the universe is configured. Sorry, I was just thinking as well, in terms of a cell analogy, that's kind of bad because that probably puts humans as the virus that just inexplicably take over machinery left inside the cell and then replicate themselves and spread until they fill up the cell, and then they burst out into the extracellular space.
Yeah, that was an analogy.
Sorry, I've just been keeping up with the US election, so I'm just... my head's all over the place.
All right, so Oscar, that does mean you're up next, but don't worry, you're going to have a couple seconds to prep, because I'm gonna hear a quick word from our sponsors.
Excellent. How many garden gnomes could you take in a fight?
When humans go extinct, what do you think will be the dominant species?
What's your deepest, darkest fear? Like the sound of any of that? Well, check out the Trialogue Podcast, a bi-monthly comedy, existentialism talk show talking about anything and everything.
We're occasionally funny too.
Find us on Spotify, iTunes, and Transistor. See you there, folks. Oh, wasn't that lovely? Right, Oscar, are you ready to go, my friend?
No. But I'll do it anyway. So, I was tasked with covering the Voyager discs, but I thought before I got into that, I'd give you a bit of a time frame and an explanation as to the Voyager probes, 1 and 2. So, in 1965, some scientists at NASA worked out that they could launch a spacecraft in the next couple of years, and it could pass by 4 of our giant outer planets using the gravity of each of those planets to swing it to the next alignment. Just sort of really making it easy to, send one camera out, take a load of pictures, rather than having to send out a load of individual cameras. It was very serendipitous, as this only happens every 176 years you can get this sort of lineup.
No way.
So they had, I think it was about 10 years before this window was closed to send these out. So they said, we've got the calculations, we know we're going to do it, we're going to get to work. Then come July in 1972, NASA approves the plan to make these satellites they're going to send into space, but not called Voyager at this moment. They're actually called the Mariner, Jupiter, and Saturn probes. And the original plan, their first draft, was just to fly by Jupiter and Saturn, just like the original Mariner spacecraft, and get some more pictures, but with better equipment. It was a nice idea, but eventually they decided, you know what, we can step this up. And in 1977, just 5 months before they launch the probes, they decided, you know what, we are going to go with a new name. How does Voyager sound? And they went, yeah, all right, Voyager sounds pretty good. So it's the 20th of August, 1977, and they're ready to launch the first probe. That being, Voyager 2, the first one they send into space, Voyager 2. Secondly, followed by Voyager 1.
Oh, yeah.
So the reason why they launched Voyager 2 first was it was going to take a cheeky little detour. As this window, only happens so long, they'd send Voyager 2 out to take a slightly longer route than Voyager 1. Because when they launch Voyager 1, it would overtake Voyager 2. But they'd both be able to, use these planetary slingshots. So that's why they did it in that order. I'm still a little bit upset, but I forgive them. And so, off they went. They went past Earth and the Moon, so just like a couple of days after they launched the Voyager probes, it was Voyager 1. Got a lovely picture of the Earth and the Moon that you can see on the internet.
Oh.
Give it 2 years, and they both managed to take a good old look at Jupiter and get some really good, decent pictures. They also managed to discover some secret moons. The Voyager probes discovered a lot of moons, I will say that, that we either didn't know about or just had never seen before.
Yeah.
So off they go, past Saturn, same story. Take loads of lovely photos. You can see them on the internet. Lovely. Then Voyager 1 starts its sort of exit directory. It's just going straight out of our solar system. Voyager 2 hangs back a bit. It goes, you know what, I'm going to get a couple more pictures before I get out of here. I'm going to go to Uranus, cheekily swoop past Neptune.
I feel like I'm thinking of it as a tourist. Like, oh, you go on Voyager and I'll meet up with you. I'm just going to get a couple more pictures.
We actually had to upgrade our equipment on Earth while Voyager was out in space so we could still detect it while it was getting further and further away. So it's interesting to see that the fact that they went, right, we can't upgrade the satellites we've sent out into space, but there are certain things we can do here on Earth to just make it a better experience.
Yeah.
So they set up giant listening telescopes, space telescopes, just to sort of, so we could hear more from Voyager. Sadly, though, after Voyager 2 encounters Neptune, and this happened with Voyager 1 as well, they went, as soon as it passes this space body, we will never really get anything on cameras again, or at least we probably would never will. So they turned off the cameras on both Voyager 1 and 2, and they've never been activated again since.
Oh.
Just because if we've had all these planetary bodies that we know about that are right next to us, so we took some snapshots, but after that it's just space, and space is not very exciting.
I don't know. There might be this is a big conspiracy here. They're trying to hide Planet X or Planet 9. It's out there. Why did they turn the cameras off? Look into it yourself. I don't know. Decide for yourself. Obviously, I'm taking the piss. Yeah, I guess it would just take energy to keep them on.
Yeah.
It's just another point of failure, I suppose.
The benefit from turning off these cameras is they did use the power, computer memory and data that was made available to instead put towards the equipment that measured for solar winds and just general interstellar space measurements. Because it's not going to see anything for a while, but it could maybe feel something in space.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose that's so we now have that information about solar wind stuff going on out there.
Yeah.
Oh, good that they turned off the cameras then.
Yeah, sometimes to see more we have to close our eyes.
Oh.
That sounded deep. So it's a couple of years. We don't really hear from Voyager. It's sort of just flying in space, and we're like, well, we know about space. We don't need to hear about it. So that they turned off the sensors in 1989. Then, in the year 1998, so about 9 years later, Voyager 1 actually passes like a milestone, and it passes the furthest human-made object from Earth in space, which was Pioneer 10, another satellite. And Voyager 1 officially becomes the farthest human-made object in space, and I don't think it'll ever lose that title now.
Yeah.
Or at least for a long time. It's just going.
Thinking about that. That might never change.
It's going, and at a very fast rate, which I'll get to, but it's a fast beam. So that's pretty nice. Everyone goes, that's good for you, Voyager, but obviously we've got to focus on more things. 1998, that's like Game Boy Color. Everyone's going to play Pokemon, things like that. It's a busy time. Then 2005, December 16th, actually. The Voyager 1 encounters the sort of inner layer of the heliosphere, the heliosheath. I was going to read into that, but I thought, you know what, I'll just listen to Dee's explanation, which I think was a bit more enlightening on the topic. But essentially, Voyager has started to leave. It gets to the exit and it's like, right, I'm about to leave. Is anybody going to stop me? No. And the thing is, as it's encountered this, it's taken in all this data, but sadly, Earth isn't listening because we're not currently in a position to listen, so we don't get any of that data. It's lost.
Oh no, what if there's data saying, there's aliens on their way, quick!
But do not fret, because remember, there was another hope. Voyager 2, when it passes through the heliosheath, just 2 years later, we were listening to it when it did that, so we actually do have that data now, thankfully.
Ah.
That's why I like both of these. It's not like they're competing, it's like they're both sort of doing their own thing, but it covers all the bases. Good old space.
If they were competing... I'm gonna grab your transmission. I'm gonna scramble it. I want to be the one that sends it.
Then, in 2012, Voyager 2. Remember, because Voyager 2 is the one that was launched into space first. Becomes NASA's longest operating mission, breaking the previous record of the Pioneer, which was 12,758 days.
Wow.
Wild.
So, Voyager 1 is the one that is always going to be the furthest, but currently Voyager 2 is going to be the longest serving space mission.
Gosh. When do you draw the line? Like, when it stops responding or we stop, there'll probably come a point where we go, oh no, it's busted. Let's end the count for how long it was operating. Possibly that one will win forever. I don't know. It's been going for like 50 years now.
Yeah. So I think in 2012 it was 35 years. So what year are we now? 2020?
Yeah.
43 years?
Wow.
Yeah, roughly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the fact that they made it and it's still working in ways is pretty impressive.
With 70s tech as well.
Yeah. And
imagine how good a Voyager could be if we built it today. A sleeker, nicer design.
And in 2012, it's official. By August the 25th, Voyager 1 enters interstellar space. It's out. It's escaped. It's out there. Some of the interesting readings we've got from it are just apparently a ringing in space.
Huh.
So the Voyager 1, it makes the first measurement of the density of the interstellar medium, so outside of our heliosphere, when a wave caused by coronal mass ejected from our sun reaches it and causes the plasma in interstellar space to ring.
What?
The high pitch of the ringing indicates that the plasma surrounding Voyager 1 is about 40 times higher than the previously measured amounts. So that confirmed that it was in interstellar space because of the density of the plasma. Just, it's out, it's escaped.
That's... Sorry, that was a lot of information. It's... What? I'm just thinking of the stars are just ringing bells in space. So you could be a space whale in interstellar medium just going, ooh, that star sounds pretty nice. Let's go over that.
I was going to say, I swear I've read that even our sun makes quite a loud sound. We just don't process it.
Yeah, we're in it.
God, they say that, in space no one can hear you scream, but they can hear the sun ring.
So, and then not too long ago, about 2 years ago, Voyager 2 makes it out as well. And they're both on their merry way at the moment. They're still serving programs for NASA, but that's it. All we can do now is just wait until they tell us something.
Or until they return.
I did note down the speeds of the two Voyagers, just so you've got an idea of how fast these beans are zooming.
Yeah.
So Voyager 2 is travelling at about 15.4 kilometres per second.
Oh.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, for me to go somewhere, I like kilometres per hour. I think I can average maybe 2.
Yeah.
But this is 15.4 kilometers every second.
That's wild.
Do you reckon, part of me in my head is like, right, but if this craft was sentient, it would just be screaming like a roller coaster the entire time.
Yeah, well, that Voyager 2 is actually the slower of the two, because Voyager 1's travelling at 17 kilometres per second.
Oh, Lord.
And that is in miles per hour. That's 35,000 miles per hour.
Wow.
That's big space zoomies.
So now we need to determine how many Oscars of speed is that? if you're about 2 kilometers per second, how many? Wait, no, it doesn't work like if you have 1,000 Oscars all walking at the same time. They don't multiply their speeds together.
We'll have to get back to the labs, but I'm thinking maybe something similar to horsepower.
Yeah. How many Oscars would it take to throw that?
See, the problem is, I think the more of me, probably the less productive I come, but
yeah.
We'll don't worry about that. So, yeah, Voyager 1 and 2, both good eggs, out in the space, going ridiculously fast. I was going to tell you how far away they were in Oscars, but by the time I'd have told you, the number would have changed drastically.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Every time I was looking at the counter and I was like, right, okay, I'll just write that. And oh no, it's going up a lot.
Maybe so. It's like 15 kilometers a second. Then how many Oscars are in a 15 kilometer span? And then it's gaining like thousands of Oscars every second. Oh man, right, you're gonna have to produce them very quickly.
So if it's 15 kilometers per second, that's 8,570 Oscars per second.
We're having to add 8,000 plus Oscars every single second just to keep up with it. Wow.
I know.
15 kilometers per second. I'm sorry. I just need us to talk about it some more because, like, my God, like you could go around the planet, like. Quite fairly quickly. Like you could have a map of the world and then just trace a line where the Voyager is going across, and it would just like cover the whole map. The entirety of humans have all lived on the Earth, and this thing would just whip by in like a minute or something.
Well, hold on. The speed of light, isn't that 8 kilometers per second or something ridiculous like that?
I think it's 300 million meters per second or something like that. I wish I had my phone. It's very fast. As in, it goes to the moon and back in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, 3 times 10 to the 8. I mean, that's quite fast, but this thing is a number I can sort of get my head around.
Yeah. It's
large, but not so large as to alienate me from the concept. Like 35,000 miles a second, I could work that out on the globe. It's just there's not like a long enough stretch on the world that you could get that to that speed safely.
Yeah.
So
it's just wild that we have managed to get it to go so fast by just slingshotting with gravity. Like we didn't go put a big ass rocket underneath and just absolutely pop it into space. We just sent it up, well, obviously probably a big rocket, yes, but just enough to get it off the surface. And then we just go, hey, how about you just lean into that? And how about you just slalom through that? Do a little bit of a, carve like a skateboard around this planet. And it just, yeah, because like gravity wells, you think of them differently when you're talking about space travel, but if you're in a gravity well, you're falling. So it just falls, and because there's nothing in its way, it just keeps gathering speed. It doesn't hit terminal velocity. So it falls towards the Earth, and then it falls towards the Moon, then it falls towards Jupiter, and then it falls towards, like, Saturn. At this point, it's cumulative, like, many, many hours of just falling, and it's a huge, like, many-ton, space probe, until it falls so fast that it's just falling in a direction not towards anything. It just keeps up the momentum. Oh, I'm sorry, this is really blowing my mind.
Yeah.
So I guess you could say we well and truly did Newtonize it then.
Yeah. Well, that was where it came from, wasn't it? Like, it's been Newtonized into deep space. But but it's very far out.
So I think that's everything interesting about... Wait a second, what? Oh, the discs, right, the discs. I nearly forgot about the discs. I didn't forget about the discs. So, as this was all just to give you an idea of what Voyager's doing up there, maybe I should tell you what it's got in its pockets. So, on the team of people deciding what to do with this satellite. So, where's my little data chart? So, they put some golden records, which were phonographs on both of these satellites. And the idea being that NASA got together a team of scientists and panelists and people they could talk to and said, we want you to tell us what ideas of humanity we should put on this disk and send into space for the specific purposes of it being found by intelligent life. So it's sort of NASA admitting that there could be life out there. And if there is, we might as well use this as an opportunity to say hello.
Yeah.
I mean, going at that speed, it's a very dangerous hello, but...
Yeah, it's like, if they are out there, if we're out of range of a species, an alien species, this will be the first thing that would come into range. So, yeah, you got to make a good first impression.
Yeah. They likened it to a time capsule, something we leave in the ground for later generations to find. But I like to more liken it to a knowledge bullet, as it contains many ideas and information, and it's going at a ridiculous speed that I wouldn't want to be in the way of.
Yeah, I hope they don't see it as some weird attack.
Hello, we would like to be your friend!
If it hit a planet at that speed, oh gosh.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, what happened? And they dig it up and it just says, hello. You've blown up one of our cities.
So, either of you might know this, but NASA had a committee assembled just to work out what should go on there. And it was actually chaired by none other than Carl Sagan.
Boy!
Who I mainly know from a lovely sort of space documentary, science-cementary video. But yeah, he was 38, sorry. And they went, we want you to chair this committee to work out what parts of humanity should go into space. And in the end, they decided upon 115 images digitized onto this disk, as well as sounds of nature, thunder, wind, birdsong, whale song, and a selection of just human music from around the world. It even featured a variety of greetings from both ancient and modern civilizations. So,
wow.
Everyone's saying hi. I hope that's not too confusing for any of the aliens.
I know, right? We've decoded English, and then only one of the messages is in English, and they're like, oh, damn it.
This bit really intrigued me because of a topic you've covered before on the podcast, Amber, which was they also put a 4-hour-long recording of the brainwaves of one Andruyan, during which she was thinking about Earth's history, civilizations, problems they faced, and what it was like to fall in love.
That is crazy.
So, previously on the podcast, I believe you discussed, the whole we found a way to turn brain readings into actual images or things like that.
Yeah.
So, that's a technology that's come around relatively recently, I'd say. Or at least they've been looking into it relatively recently. Yeah. I can't quite remember the time frames.
Well, they were able to reconstruct images in a very rough way, but that's just like one of our first stabs at it. That's wild that back in the 70s, they were like, aliens might be able to read brainwaves. We should probably send some of those in there as well.
And some of the images, because there was 115, quite a lot. I've managed to have a look at a couple of them on the NASA site. But there are quite a few that aren't displayed for copyright reasons. They got the go-ahead to put them on the disc, but we can't see them because it's copyrighted, and I think that's very funny.
That's tickled me. We can't show you what we sent to the aliens. If there's copyright, you might use it and make money off it. That's come on.
But included in some of the photos, they had sort of mathematical definitions, so we started defining things. We thought, how can we make this information as accessible as possible without taking too much space? So then they started defining things mathematically, like what fractions were and what equations were and what numbers sort of meant.
Yeah.
So it starts off with the very basis of mathematics. It'd be like 1 dot is 1, 2 dots is 2, just to make you go, okay, I see what this is. These are numbers. Then it jumps up and it starts to define what we know in units. So seconds, days, months, years, then masses, kilograms, weights, distances in time and length. We just really hammer it on. It's like the first class where you go, this is easy, and then the second class, and everything looks like it's in a different language to you. You've got no idea what's going on.
I guess the hope is that they already know all this. You need to give them the information that you know about it too. And if they can go, oh, they appear to be doing that maths thing that we also know, and then they kind of know that we're on a level. Or, if they didn't already gather that from the knowledge bullet.
Knowledge bullet?
Sorry,
carry on.
So they also included some reference pictures of the planets on our solar system. They also had chemical definitions, so defining what atoms were, and then going from there, they started to define what complex chemicals were, and then from that they then defined what DNA was.
Ooh.
It's a really interesting look. I recommend, if you've not seen it before at home, just Google Voyager probe images or contents. But so they define DNA, and then they move on to, well, how is a person born? So there is an actual diagram of sort of an egg being fertilized.
Mm-hmm.
Then sort of...
That's one way of putting it.
Scaled pictures of babies in certain developmental stages, but rather than being a picture, it's like an outline, so no details of like what we look like, just the shape. And then pictures of sort of how kids change in size over the years. So there's an age scale of showing different people's mass at the ages of 4, 12, 30, and 80. So we've already covered quite a lot, but that was less than a third of the images. They're just really trying to get it in there.
Yeah.
They then sort of define evolution, which was a variety of animals and vertebrates and sort of where they came from, sort of trying to link them to each other. And then after that, they've got a lovely selection of just pictures they thought at the time really gave you the best idea of Earth. So there's like rush hour traffic in Thailand. There's somebody getting an X-ray of their hand. There's a bunch of fishermen just fishing. My favourite, and I'm not going to describe the picture, I'll only give you what the sort of little annotation, the name of the photo is. It's called The Demonstration of Licking, Eating and Drinking. So there is a picture that sort of was meant to be getting across the idea of how we eat and consume food, but I think that's quite hard in just a freeze-frame picture.
Licking, eating and drinking.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think is having a half-melted ice cream.
So one of the it's three people. One person is licking an ice cream. One person is eating what appears to be a toasty or some sort of bread product, and then on the other side of the picture, there's somebody just pouring a jug of water from above head height into their mouth.
This is going to give the aliens the wrong idea. That's not how I drink.
So we really shoved a lot into these discs, but that's not even all of it. On the cover of the disc, there's a famous image, and it is just the sort of the record casing, and it covers a lot of the information, just general information, so people couldn't understand it, how to read the disc, where it came from, just a bit more starting information. It sort of defines how you should play this phonograph record. So it's a record, so you need a record player, but what if the aliens who find it don't have a record player? Why would they? So we use, I think it's an image of a hydrogen atom, just to get the idea of the image, and it defines how the record should be played, which I think is really hard to do, especially since there's no text, it's just pictures.
Yeah.
But it defines sort of the elevation of the disc and how it should be played, and it even defines the time frame in Morse and other contents of the disc.
So the picture of the hydrogen atom was to illustrate, because you should, if you know anything about like space travel and stuff, you would know what they were referring to on the hydrogen, which is like how long it takes to decay, or how long it takes for like a phase shift of like the electron or something like that, and then a number of those, and that's how how long the thing should be. So it's basically right. You should understand I'm talking about a hydrogen here by it's a circle with a dot in the middle. And if you get that, then you know what time I'm talking about, and then it's this many times that. And I thought that was interesting to relate it to a physical process, which should be objective, regardless of what language you use or anything like that. It's simply something you would observe in hydrogen. I thought that was very smart.
It's clever because obviously our definitions of time come from the sun and how we travel around it. Like that is our whole our measurement of time. Like we do now have a more scientific definition of what a second actually is, because we use a second a lot in science. But things like days and hours, these are all sort of artificial definitions that we've made up ourselves, whereas a second is something we can sort of connect to. So they define what is so how it should be played, what sort of speed you should be playing at. They also contain a diagram of where our sun is using 14 pulsar stars that we know of to sort of place where the Earth is. Well, the sun.
That's cool.
It's just, to me, it looks like a spiky image. Like if you imagine a star, but instead of, doing it fancy, it's like a dot in the middle and then loads of different lines coming out. But they also use Morse code to define how often the pulsar, the stars are sort of pulsing. So there's like, it's a more than 3D image. It's also telling you, right, if you're here, then you should be receiving signals from this star every so often, and this and that, and
that's cool.
They've condensed so much information to a tiny little bit of information. You just have to work it out, and then they define sort of how to read a lot of the information, because there's a lot of binary code and various bits on the disc, and they even have like a little tester, so it's like a little piece of information that's given in binary code, and if you do correctly translate the information, it should come in, like appear as a circle, which is the first image you should see on the disc. Which is just a circle. It's a calibration circle, so it says if you can turn these lines into a circle, you can read this disc.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so there's so much information stored on this disc, and it's out there in space. There was a bit of controversy about deciding what should go on the disc. Originally, there was going to be, because in the images, there's like the silhouette of people, But sadly, they're due to sort of controversy at the time, they couldn't put any images of sort of like a naked body, so they couldn't show aliens what we looked like.
What?
Fully, because of censorship, because they were like, we don't want to show, rude parts in space. That's very uncouth of us.
What?
Whereas, I know, right?
I mean, I was thinking as well, when it's like, oh, and it's a guy, doing fishing, and it's someone getting an X-ray. I was like, surely you should show someone like blowing someone's fucking head off, because that happens enough. Maybe just a couple of people doing a gangbang, some bukkake, I don't know, fisting, just all the porn
Christ,
stuff. In fact, can we send out like a porn version of Voyager? Much faster, sleeker design. It's not a record, it's just like an MP3 player or like an SD card. Maybe we could just send the cloud with it. Just with
Voyager 3, purely for porn.
Yeah, the whole cloud, the cloud that we talk about. Put that, the whole thing, the whole concept of the cloud on Voyager 3 and just fill it full of porn and just send it.
Well, this is cursed.
Well, if you wanted to see any of the images, you can find them on the internet and have a good look. A lot of them are very interesting.
Well,
but,
you've just detailed that none of it's porn, so why would I look?
I know. But in July 2015, NASA did upload as well all the audio contents of the record online.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
believe to SoundCloud. I'm not sure if they'd be on any other platforms, but you can also give them a listen. Just listen to, maybe 30 minutes of people saying hello around the world. A couple of the choice music songs they chose to put on there. There's some classical music, some music from different cultures.
Sorry, that's wild. If it's classical music, that means possibly hundreds of years ago someone just went, I'm going to write me a song. And then, if you went back in time and then just went, hello, just to let you know, this song that you're writing right now, we're going to put on a disc and send it out to aliens. Yeah, it's going to be traveling at 15 kilometers a second. It will literally be among the stars. And it's going to have your song on it. That's wild.
I'm kind of sad we don't do things like this anymore, because a lot of the investigations I've done for this podcast into, science and the unknown and space, earlier on in our human history of space exploration, we did a lot more of aliens might exist, but we're not going to say that they don't exist, because they might. So, I don't know, maybe cheekily throw this disc onto this probe, maybe just send a message out into space saying, hey, we're over here, doing some nice things for the aliens. But nowadays, I don't think it's their concern, and that's sad.
Well, if we think there might be aliens on Venus, we could probably just send them a little gift basket.
Cheeky knowledge bullet.
We'll just bombard them with knowledge from space. Hello, hello, hello!
But yeah, that is the entirety of my Voyager probe book report.
That was very cool. Thank you.
It was very well enjoyed.
I'm now just thinking of an atomic bomb that just says, we come in peace on the side of it.
Okay. On that note, I'm going to shift us to the next segment. Stuff that we like, where we talk about something we've enjoyed between recordings. I'm just going to go first to give you both time to prepare yourself.
Thank you.
And I'm going to talk about Oscar as my thing.
Oh.
Not that you're a thing. Because honestly, I have had such a horrific week that hasn't just been a bunch of bad things or a bunch of good things. It's been up and down so consistently, I don't know whether I'm coming or going, as they say. And to be honest, I've been so fundamentally grateful for Oscar, because you have just listened very patiently and talked with me, and you've been really attentive, and I couldn't be more grateful. Sincerely, thank you very much.
Aww.
No problem. You know what? I enjoy helping my friends whenever possible.
You're a good egg, Oscar. You're a good egg.
That was really sweet.
Right, who's going next?
Go on, Oscar. You take it away.
Oh, I'm so... I didn't think about what I could say.
I haven't either, and I throw you under the bus now. I'm just...
Oscar, I can suggest you something if you're really stuck.
I love Lamp.
What about that game you've been playing every evening for the past few days? Maybe even weeks?
Stellaris.
Ooh.
So I've been playing quite a bit of Stellaris recently. It sort of came about from my love of Civ games. So I quite loved Civ 5, and then I quite enjoyed Civ 6, and then I did play the one in space, but
it's not great, is it?
It's after a while I just fell off of it. But Stellaris, it's just got so much going for it. So at the very start of the game, you choose what race of aliens you want to be. You could be humans if you wanted. You could be, you could essentially rebuild Klingons or Vulcans from Star Trek. You could just do something really silly over the top. You could be robots. You could be tree people. You could be a planet of undead necromancers.
Ooh.
Fantastic. You choose who you're playing. Secondly, you choose where you're playing from. You choose sort of how your species came to be or what they're up to at the moment. So in a lot of my recent playthroughs as robots, we had a machine homeworld, which was sort of the whole planet was a giant machine.
Like Cybertron.
But I've the most recent one I've started with D. I'm on a ring world, which is sort of a planetary strip that's around the sun, and I've just got to repair it. But it's just really fascinating, all these different starts you can have, and then you go out there into space and you discover other empires, other maybe friends or enemies, giant horrific monsters, maybe just a friendly flotilla of space whales. Lovely.
Yeah.
And maybe lost civilizations. There's so much to do and there's so much going on. You'll just be doing one thing and then suddenly you'll be distracted by a message about a fleet swallowing Leviathan heading your way. And you think, oh, I've got to deal with that. But before you can process that, turns out one of your scientists has had a freak accident and now there's two of them. What do you do? As a game with just so much going for it, and I don't even know how the game ends because I've never gotten there. It's just, it's a very long session. You sit down, it's probably going to take you more than 2 days to finish. But it's taken me from my living room out into the stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the learning curve maybe seems a bit steep. I've played a couple of hours of Stellaris. I played the fungus people.
Fungaloids.
I think maybe we were a hive mind. I can't remember. But yeah, it was basically, let's just all go and explore the galaxy. And I think I was just near the end of the player session. I just met for the first time one of the other players. And we were just like, oh, hello, let's set up a little trade. It's cool. If you're a big nerd, you'll probably love it.
Apt.
I am a big nerd.
I mean, I think we're all big nerds here, so perfect.
Amber, what's your thing?
So what I wanted to talk about was the TV show Beast Wars.
Ooh.
Beast Wars was a spin-off Transformers show. So for a first in the Transformers franchise, it was completely CG. It's pretty much laughably bad now because it was like in the 90s and it was 100% CG. Obviously, these guys have got a budget, they've got a time limit on making them and stuff. So it's quite janky, but I thought for a Transformers thing, it dealt with some very interesting topics. They had characters who are, maybe a little bit of a moral grey area for whose side they're on. You had, even episodes that really disturbed me. Like there was one where one of the pods that had crashed on Earth. So basically, the Autobots and Decepticons crash on Earth, And when they land, they go, oh God, well, we got to scan things and see what we can turn into. Like, they turn into cars and tanks and jets and things. But they landed thousands and thousands of years ago before humans had even become civilized. They were just cavemen. So the Autobots and Decepticons, they crash land and they just scan and they go, oh, a rhino, a gorilla, a cheetah. And they just turn into animals. And the Predacons, the Decepticons, they scan, and then they go, oh, look, fossils of like a T-Rex and stuff, and they turn into a T-Rex. And then they called them Maximals and the Predacons.
Please tell me Starscream is some kind of vulture or pterodactyl or something.
There is an equivalent to Starscream, and he's called Pterosaur, and he's a pterodactyl. Yeah.
I'll take it.
But sad for him, he just falls in some lava at one point and he's dead. So that's pretty sad for him. There's like Waspinator, who he's a wasp, but he's a huge wasp. And then you got Rat Trap, who's a giant rat.
To be fair, I don't want to deal with a giant wasp.
Yeah, well, luckily for you, Waspinator is an idiot, so it's all good. The reason why what made me think of Beast Wars was because we were talking about the Voyager disc. What the Decepticons were able to find was they had intercepted Voyager. Basically, there's a lot of like time travel and stuff going on in the show as well. So They had intercepted the Voyager disc, and when they play it, it had pictures of what the world looks like. So there's one point he spins up the disc and it shows a mountain. And he looks at the mountain that he's travelled to and he's like, I'm pretty certain this is the mountain in the picture. And he fires a giant rocket at the mountain and blows it up. And then he looks at the picture and it's a picture of a destroyed mountain. And he's like, my God, I can change what happened. So he basically goes, we can change the future. We're in the past. The humans are what did us in. So let's just go and wipe out all the primitive humans. So there's like this whole story arc of the Maximals protecting prehistoric humans, and I just thought that was really cool because they took what was a cool science thing project, the golden discs, and then they turned it into like a thing like, haha, if I know the past I can change the future, that kind of thing. And yeah, I just thought that was really cool. I would recommend watching Beast Wars. I have no idea what platforms you can get it on. I don't even think you can get it properly anywhere. Maybe YouTube. But yeah, the problem is if you're not ready to sit down and watch the show, you'll watch a few clips and it'll make it look like crap. you gotta watch the whole thing, otherwise it's no fucking deal.
I'm loving the sell here.
Come on, you'll be hooked. Don't worry, it'll be like your new heroin.
And with that, I think that's us for this week. Unless anyone's got anything to add?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Any topic suggestions or feedback, drop us a comment or email us on phenomenautspodcast@gmail.com. We can even give you a shout out if you'd like. Peace out, folks, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.